My name is Tom Haywood, and I'm about to tell you how my wife's family taught me that some pranks deserve a master class in revenge. It started on a Friday morning in October, when Sasha announced we were going to her family's cabin for the weekend. Dad's idea, she said, not looking up from her phone. He thinks we all need some quality time together. Quality time. With Arthur Madsen, my father-in-law, who thought leaving me stranded at a gas station in the middle of nowhere during a storm warning would be hilarious. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm 38, an HVAC contractor with calloused hands and a mortgage on a modest house in the suburbs outside Chicago. Sasha's 35, works in HR at some corporate firm, and comes from what her mother Linda calls good stock. Translation: old money, country club memberships, and the kind of people who think manual labor is what the help does. Do we have to? I asked, tightening a pipe fitting under the kitchen sink. I've got 3 service calls scheduled for Monday. Tom, please. It's been months since we've all been together. That was a lie. We'd suffered through Labor Day weekend at their lake house, where her brother Chris spent the entire time posting TikTok videos, and her father Art regaled us with stories about his banking days while drinking scotch that cost more than my truck payment. Fine, I said, because 20 years of marriage teaches you to pick your battles. But I'm driving my truck. Actually, Dad wants us all to carpool, team building or something. I should have known right then something was off. Art Madsen had never shown interest in team building unless it involved making someone else the team joke. Sasha had been acting strange for weeks. More time on her phone, hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room, sudden girls' nights that seemed to happen every other day. When I asked about it, she'd get defensive. Can't I have friends without you interrogating me? I'm not interrogating, I'm asking. Same thing with you. But it wasn't the same thing, and we both knew it. The morning we left, I loaded our weekend bags into Art's massive SUV, while he stood there supervising like I was his employee. Chris was already in the back seat, live streaming himself eating breakfast cereal. Morning, Tom, Art said, with that condescending smile he'd perfected over 60 years of looking down on people. Ready for some family bonding? Can't wait, I replied, because sarcasm was my only defense mechanism around these people. Linda emerged from the house, carrying enough luggage for a month-long safari. Oh good, you're here early, Tom. Arthur has such fun activities planned. Fun activities. In my experience, Art's idea of fun usually involved someone else's humiliation. The drive started normally enough. Sasha sat up front with her father. Chris continued his social media marathon in the middle row, and Linda peppered me with questions about my little business from the seat beside me. Greg Turner, the family friend who'd been hanging around more lately, rode shotgun and kept checking his phone. Greg was a real estate agent, with perfectly styled hair and a smile that never reached his eyes. He drove a red BMW and wore cologne that probably cost more than I made in a week. Sasha always lit up when he was around, laughing a little too hard at his jokes and touching his arm when she talked to him. So Tom, Greg said, turning around to face me, Sasha tells me business is good. Good enough. Ever think about expanding? I know some commercial properties that might interest you. Not really. The conversation died there, but I caught him and Sasha exchanging glances in the rearview mirror. 3 hours into the drive, we stopped at a truck stop called Murphy's Gas and Go. It was one of those places that looked like it hadn't been updated since the Clinton administration, with flickering neon signs and coffee that could strip paint. Bathroom break, Art announced. 15 minutes, then we're back on the road. I headed inside to grab coffee and use the restroom. The weather forecast on the TV above the counter showed a massive storm system moving in from the west. The meteorologist was using words like dangerous and life-threatening conditions. When I walked back outside, the parking lot was empty except for a few semis and an old pickup truck with Illinois plates. Both SUVs were gone. I stood there for a moment, coffee growing cold in my hand, trying to process what I was seeing, or rather, what I wasn't seeing. My phone buzzed. A text from Sasha. LOL, Dad's idea. Family prank. Find your own way home. Then the group chat exploded. Chris. Bet he cries. Linda. Oh, Arthur, you're terrible. Greg. This is hilarious. Wish I could see his face. Art. Kid needs to toughen up. Character building. I stared at the screen as more laughing emojis filled the chat. My wife, my in-laws, and their pet real estate agent were having a grand time imagining me stranded 300 miles from home, with a major storm approaching. The wind was already picking up, and the sky had that greenish tint that meant serious weather was coming. Fast, I typed back. Very funny. Come back and get me. Sasha, nope. Dad says you need to learn to be more independent. Chris, maybe call an Uber. Mia, Gregor building, bro. That's when something cold and calculating settled in my chest. These people thought they were teaching me a lesson. They had no idea what lesson I was about to teach them. I walked back into the truck stop and approached the clerk, a tired-looking woman with graying hair and kind eyes. Excuse me, do you have a phone book? She looked at me like I'd asked for a telegraph machine. Honey, nobody uses phone books anymore. You got a smartphone? I need a tow truck and a car rental place. Oh, you broke down. That sucks, especially with this storm coming. She pulled out her own phone. Big Mike's Towing is about 20 minutes out. For rentals, there's Enterprise in the next town, but they close at 6. It was already 4:30. Can you call Big Mike for me? Tell him it's an emergency and I'll pay double his usual rate. While we waited for the tow truck, I made another call. Pete, it's Tom. I need a favor. Pete Rodriguez had been my best friend since high school. He owned a small construction company and had never liked Sasha's family. What's up, man? My loving in-laws just stranded me at a truck stop as a prank. I need you to go to my house and get something for me. Those bastards did what? I explained the situation while watching the storm clouds build on the horizon. Jesus, Tom, what do you need? Remember when we installed that new thermostat at the cabin last spring? I made a copy of the spare key. It's in the blue toolbox in my garage, taped under the bottom drawer. You thinking what I think you're thinking? They want to play games, Pete. Let's play. Big Mike turned out to be a mountain of a man with arms like tree trunks and a laugh that could shake windows. When I explained what happened, his face darkened. They left you here, in this weather? Family bonding exercise. That's not family, brother. That's just cruel. He loaded my truck onto his flatbed and drove me to the Enterprise office with 5 minutes to spare. The clerk was just locking up when we arrived. Please, I said, it's an emergency. Maybe it was the desperation in my voice, or maybe she could see the storm approaching. But she unlocked the door and rented me a black SUV with 4-wheel drive. You be careful out there, she said. This storm's supposed to be a monster. I thanked her and headed north, not toward home, but toward the cabin where my family was probably already settling in for their weekend of fun at my expense. The Madsen family cabin sat on 50 acres of woods about an hour from the nearest town. Art had bought it 15 years ago as a rustic retreat, though rustic was relative when you had heated floors, a wine cellar, and satellite internet. I'd been there enough times to know the layout, the hiding spots, and most importantly, how all the systems worked, including the main electrical panel in the basement that controlled the heat. The storm was getting worse by the minute. Rain hammered the SUV's windshield, and the wind was strong enough to rock the vehicle when I stopped at traffic lights. Perfect weather for what I had in mind. My phone kept buzzing with updates from the family group chat. Sasha. Hope Tom's not too mad, Art. He'll thank us later. Builds character. Linda. Should we have left him some money? Chris. He's got credit cards. Greg. Probably already home ordering pizza. If they only knew. I reached the cabin at 8:30, just as the storm hit full force. The family SUVs weren't there yet, which meant they'd probably stopped for dinner somewhere, confident that their little prank had taught me a valuable lesson about self-reliance. They had no idea what lesson I was about to teach them about consequences. Using the key Pete had retrieved, I let myself into the dark cabin. The place smelled like expensive wood polish and Art's cigars. I didn't turn on any lights. No need to advertise my presence if they arrived early. The basement was exactly as I remembered. I found the main electrical panel and started flipping breakers. Not all of them. That would be too obvious. Just the ones that controlled the heating system, the hot water heater, and the kitchen appliances. Then I went to work on the water system. The cabin had its own well with an electric pump. I didn't shut it off completely, just reduced the pressure so the water would run in a weak, frustrating trickle. Next, I gathered all the extra blankets, pillows, and warm clothing I could find, and loaded them into my SUV. I also raided the pantry, taking most of the canned goods, snacks, and coffee. I left just enough food so they wouldn't starve, but not enough to be comfortable. Finally, I left a small note taped inside the electrical panel where only someone trying to fix the heat would find it. Try flipping this one, genius. T. By the time I finished, the storm was howling like a living thing. Trees bent nearly horizontal in the wind, and the rain was coming down in sheets. Perfect. I drove 20 minutes to the nearest town and checked into the Comfort Inn. The desk clerk, a young guy with worried eyes, looked relieved to see me. "You're lucky to get the last room," he said. "We're booked solid with people avoiding the storm. Good timing, I guess." My room was warm, dry, and had a view of the parking lot, where I could watch the storm rage. I ordered pizza, cracked open a beer from the mini-fridge, and settled in to wait. At 10:15, my phone exploded with activity. Sasha. "Tom, the heat isn't working at the cabin." I waited 5 minutes before responding. "That sucks. Maybe call a repair guy?" "Chris, there's barely any water pressure." "Me. Old cabin problems. Dad should have that looked at." "Art. The stove won't work either. What kind of place is this?" "Me. The kind you get when you don't maintain things properly." "Linda. Tom, we're freezing. Can you help us?" "Me. Sorry. I'm 300 miles away, remember? Character building exercise?" The messages kept coming, getting more frantic as the temperature in the cabin dropped and they realized they were trapped by the storm with no heat, no hot water, and barely enough food. Sasha called me directly at 11:30. "Tom, this isn't funny anymore." "What isn't funny?" "Don't play dumb. We know you did something to the cabin." "How could I do anything to the cabin? You left me at a truck stop, remember? You could have driven here. In what car?" "You took both vehicles." There was a pause. I could hear Art shouting in the background about the goddamn electrical system. "Tom, please. Mom's really cold, and Chris can't get warm. Maybe you should have thought about that before abandoning me in a storm. It was just a prank." "So is this." I hung up and turned off my phone. The next morning, I drove to a diner in town and had a proper breakfast. Eggs, bacon, hash browns, and coffee that didn't taste like motor oil. I took a selfie of myself with the plate and posted it to Facebook with the caption, "Nothing like a warm meal on a cold morning. Sometimes being abandoned is a blessing in disguise." Then I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls, 63 text messages. The group chat looked like a war zone. "Art, Tom, you son of a bitch, what did you do?" "Linda, we found your note. This is cruel." "Chris, dude, we get it. Joke's over." "Sasha, Tom, please, we're sorry. Just tell us how to fix the heat." "Greg, this is getting out of hand, man." I responded to the group chat. "What's the matter? I thought you all enjoyed a good prank. How's the cold shoulder? Warmer than the one I got yesterday." My phone immediately started ringing. "Sasha, Tom, enough. We're sorry, okay? It was stupid." "Yes, it was. So tell us how to fix the heat." "Figure it out. Character building, right?" "Tom, you know what, Sasha? Yesterday, when you drove away and left me stranded, I realized something. You didn't just abandon me at that truck stop. You abandoned our marriage. So why don't you call your boyfriend Greg? I'm sure he's got some great ideas." The silence on the other end told me everything I needed to know. "Tom, what are you talking about?" "I'm talking about the cozy little texts you've been sending each other. The ones you thought I didn't know about. The hotel receipts in your purse. The sudden girls' nights that smell like his cologne." "Tom, save it. Enjoy the cabin. I hear the cold really brings people together." I hung up and blocked all their numbers. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The storm lasted 2 days. 2 days of my wife's family huddled together in a freezing cabin with no heat, minimal food, and barely any water pressure. They finally figured out the electrical panel on Sunday morning. But by then the damage was done. I spent those 2 days in comfort, documenting everything on social media. Photos of my warm hotel room, my restaurant meals, my cozy evening reading a book by the fireplace in the hotel lobby. Each post was carefully crafted to twist the knife a little deeper. Day 2 of my unexpected solo retreat. Amazing how peaceful life becomes when toxic people remove themselves from it. #blessed #storm survivor #family first. The responses were immediate and telling. Friends and neighbors who knew about the family prank started asking questions. My buddy Pete shared the post with the comment, "When your in-laws strand you in a storm, but you turn it into a spa weekend." Saham. Mrs. Kowalski, our neighbor, commented, "They left you where? In this weather? That's not a prank. That's dangerous." By Sunday evening, half the neighborhood knew what happened. The other half would know by Monday morning. I drove home Sunday night and found 17 voicemails on my landline. I didn't listen to any of them. Monday morning, I was under the Henderson's kitchen sink replacing a garbage disposal when my phone rang. Unknown number. Tom, it's Linda. How did you get this number? I called your business line. Tom, we need to talk. No, we don't. What you did was cruel. We could have frozen to death. But you didn't. Character building, remember? It was just a harmless prank. Harmless? You left me stranded 300 miles from home in the middle of a severe storm warning. If I hadn't been able to get a tow truck and rental car, I could have been stuck there all night, maybe longer. We knew you'd figure something out. The way you figured out how to fix the heat? Silence. Tom, Art wants to apologize. Art can apologize to someone who gives a damn. And Sasha wants to come home. Sasha can want whatever she likes, but she's not coming home to my house. What do you mean? I mean I changed the locks. Her stuff is in storage unit 247 at U Store It on Maple Street. The key's under the mat. Tom, you can't just watch me. I hung up and went back to work. The Hendersons had been listening to my side of the conversation with growing amazement. They really left you at a gas station? Mrs. Henderson asked. In the middle of a storm warning. That's not a prank, Mr. Henderson said. That's abandonment. That's what I told them. Word spread fast in our neighborhood. By Tuesday, everyone knew about the prank and my response. The reactions were mixed, but mostly supportive. Most people thought what my in-laws did was cruel and dangerous. Sasha showed up at my house Tuesday evening. I watched through the window as she tried her key, then started pounding on the door. Tom, open up. We need to talk. I opened the door but left the chain lock engaged. Talk. She looked terrible. Her hair was unwashed, her eyes were red from crying, and she was wearing the same clothes she'd had on when they left me at the truck stop. Tom, please, let me in. Let me come home. This is my home. You made your choice when you drove away and left me stranded. It was Dad's idea, and you went along with it. You laughed about it. You sent me laughing emojis while I was standing in a parking lot watching a storm approach. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this, Sasha. What do you want me to do? I want you to leave. Tom, please. I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of being married to someone safe and reliable while you screw around with Greg Turner. Her face went white. What? I know about the affair, Sasha. The texts, the hotel visits, the whole thing. Tom, I can explain. I don't want an explanation. I want a divorce. I closed the door and walked away, leaving her standing on the porch in the rain. But my revenge was just getting started. Wednesday morning, I did something I'd never done before. I called in sick to work. Not because I was actually sick, but because I had a full day of payback planned. First stop, Greg Turner's real estate office. Turner and Associates occupied a gleaming storefront on the main drag of downtown Elmhurst. Greg's face smiled at me from a dozen for sale signs in the window, all perfect teeth and empty eyes. I walked in wearing my best suit, the one I'd worn to my wedding, and asked to speak with Greg about a commercial property. Tom, Greg's fake smile faltered when he saw me. What a surprise. I bet it is. He led me to his office, a chrome and glass monument to his own ego. Photos of sold properties covered the walls, along with his various sales awards. So, he said, settling behind his desk, Sasha mentioned you might be interested in expanding your business. Sasha mentioned a lot of things. I pulled out my phone and set it on his desk. What's that? Screenshots, text messages, hotel receipts, photos. Greg's face went from tan to pale yellow in about 3 seconds. Tom, I can explain. Explain what? How you've been screwing my wife for the past 6 months. How you helped plan that little prank at the truck stop so you two could have a romantic weekend while I was supposedly learning about character building. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And now I'm going to explain what's going to happen. I leaned forward, and Greg actually pushed his chair back. You're going to stop seeing my wife. You're going to stop calling her, texting her, and breathing the same air as her. And if you don't, these photos and messages are going to find their way to your wife, your business partners, and every real estate forum in the state. You can't prove anything. I turned my phone around and showed him a particularly explicit text he'd sent Sasha 3 days earlier. His eyes bulged. Want to bet? I stood up and straightened my tie. Oh, and Greg, next time you want to play pranks on someone, make sure they don't know where you work. I walked out of his office, leaving him staring at his phone like it might explode. Next stop, Sasha's office. Midwest Insurance Group was housed in a bland office building, filled with bland people doing bland work. Sasha had been there for 8 years, working her way up to HR manager through a combination of competence and politics. I knew her schedule. Wednesday was staff meeting day, which meant she'd be in the conference room with her entire department at 10:30. I arrived at 10:25 and asked the receptionist if I could see Sasha. She's in a meeting right now. Can I take a message? Tell her it's her husband. It's about our divorce. The receptionist's eyes widened. Divorce? Divorce. She made the call, and 2 minutes later, Sasha came rushing out of the conference room, her face flushed with embarrassment. Tom, what are you doing here? Serving you these. I handed her a manila envelope containing divorce papers, custody agreements for our dog, and a detailed list of marital assets. You can't be serious. Dead serious. Tom, please, not here. Not in front of my coworkers. Why not? You didn't mind humiliating me in front of your family. By now, half her department was watching from the conference room doorway. Sasha's boss, a stern woman named Margaret Chen, looked particularly interested. Tom, please, the papers are pretty straightforward. I'm keeping the house, the truck, and the tools. You can have the Honda and whatever's left in your personal accounts after you pay for your own lawyer. What about counseling? What about trying to work this out? What about Greg Turner? The name hung in the air like a bad smell. I could see the recognition on several faces. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who knew about the affair. I don't know what you mean. Sure you don't. I turned to address her coworkers, who were now openly staring. Just so everyone knows, Sasha and her family thought it would be funny to abandon me at a truck stop 300 miles from home during a storm warning, as a prank, while she was having an affair with a real estate agent. The silence was deafening. Tom, Sasha's voice cracked like a whip. Have a great day, everyone. Sasha, you have 30 days to respond to the papers. I walked out, leaving behind a conference room full of shocked faces and one very humiliated HR manager, but I still wasn't done. That evening, I created something I'd never had before, a Facebook account. I'd always thought social media was a waste of time, but I was beginning to understand its potential as a weapon of mass humiliation. My first post was simple and devastating. Some of you have been asking about the family prank from last weekend. Here's what actually happened. I attached the screenshots of the group chat, showing the family's gleeful messages about abandoning me, followed by their panicked texts when they realized they were trapped in a freezing cabin with no heat or food. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Pete, holy shit, dude. They actually left you there, Mrs. Kowalski. This is horrible. What kind of family does this? My cousin Mike. Art Madsen did this. I'm never banking with him again. That last comment was particularly satisfying. Art was a senior loan officer at First National, and his reputation in the community was built on being trustworthy and reliable. This post was about to destroy that reputation. Within 2 hours, the post had been shared 47 times. By morning, it had been shared over 200 times and had reached most of our extended social circle. The comments were brutal. This isn't a prank. It's abuse. I can't believe Linda Madsen was okay with this. That Greg Turner guy sounds like a real piece of work. Poor Tom. No wonder he's getting divorced. Thursday morning, my phone started ringing at 6 a.m. Tom, it's Art. What do you want? We need to talk. This Facebook thing has gotten out of hand. Has it? People are calling the bank. My boss wants to see me this afternoon. That's unfortunate. Tom, I'm asking you to take down the post. And I'm asking you to go to hell. God damn it, Tom. We said we were sorry. No, you didn't. You said it was a harmless prank, and I needed to get over it. Well, we're saying it now. Too little, too late. I hung up and immediately got another call. Linda this time. Tom, please, you're destroying our family. Your family destroyed itself when you decided to leave me stranded in a storm. It was just a joke. So is this. Click. Chris called next, then Greg, then Sasha again. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I made another Facebook post. Update. Tokens. The family is now claiming they're sorry and it was just a joke. Funny how it stopped being a joke when there were consequences. Here's a life tip. If your prank could result in someone being stranded in dangerous weather, it's not a prank. It's just cruelty. This post got even more traction than the first one. By Friday afternoon, it had been shared over 500 times and had generated nearly 1,000 comments. The story had taken on a life of its own. Someone had created a hashtag, #TruckStopTom. Local news stations were picking it up. A reporter from Channel 7 called and asked if I wanted to do an interview. No thanks, I said. The story speaks for itself. But the damage was done. Art was placed on administrative leave, pending an investigation into his judgment and character. Linda was quietly asked to step down from her position on the church board. Chris lost his job at a marketing firm after his boss saw the posts and decided he didn't want someone with questionable ethics representing the company. And Greg Turner? His wife threw him out after someone anonymously sent her the screenshots of his text messages with Sasha. By Saturday, my revenge was complete, or so I thought. Saturday evening, another storm rolled through town. Not as severe as the one the previous weekend, but enough to rattle windows and knock out power in some neighborhoods. I was sitting in my living room, reading a book by candlelight. The power had flickered but held, when someone started pounding on my front door. "Tom, open up. We need to talk." Sasha's voice, but she wasn't alone. I could hear other voices, including Art's distinctive bark. I looked through the peephole and saw the whole family on my porch. Sasha, Art, Linda, Chris, and Greg. They looked like a delegation of the damned, wet from the rain and desperate. "Go away," I called through the door. "Tom, please," Sasha shouted. 5 minutes, that's all we ask. You had 20 years to talk. Time's up." "Tom," Art's voice now, commanding and angry. "Open this door right now." I almost laughed. Even after everything, he still thought he could order me around. Or what? You'll leave me at a truck stop? Thunder rolled overhead, and the lights flickered. In the brief darkness, I made a decision. I opened the door. 5 minutes, I said. "But you're not coming in." They crowded onto my covered porch, dripping and miserable. Sasha looked like she'd been crying for days. Art's face was red with anger and embarrassment. Linda clutched her purse like a shield. Chris kept checking his phone, probably documenting this for social media. And Greg hung back, looking like he wanted to be anywhere else. "Tom," Sasha began, "this has gone far enough, has it? You've destroyed our family. Dad might lose his job. Chris already lost his. Mom can't show her face at church. And it's cruel. It's vindictive." I stared at her, this woman I'd been married to for 20 years, and felt nothing but cold contempt. "You want to talk about cruel? Let me tell you what cruel is." I stepped out onto the porch, and they all took a step back. Cruel is planning a weekend trip just so you can abandon your husband in the middle of nowhere. Cruel is laughing about it in a group chat while he's standing in a storm. Cruel is having an affair for 6 months and then acting like the victim when you get caught. "Tom," Sasha started. "I'm not finished." Lightning flashed, illuminating their faces in stark detail. "You want to know what the real prank was? It wasn't leaving me at that truck stop. The real prank was making me believe for 20 years that you actually loved me, that you respected me, that I mattered to you. You do matter. No, I don't. I'm just the reliable guy who fixes things and pays the mortgage while you screw around with pretty boys in expensive cars." Greg shifted uncomfortably, but didn't say anything. "And you," I turned to Art. "You think you're some kind of patriarch, teaching life lessons through humiliation. But all you've taught me is that bullies never change, they just get older." Art's face was purple now. "You little, what? What am I? A little what?" "The same thing you've always thought I was. Not good enough for your daughter." "Well, guess what? You're right. I'm not good enough. I'm too good." The storm was getting worse. Rain was starting to blow onto the porch, and we all had to raise our voices to be heard. "Tom, please," Linda tried. "We're family." "No, we're not. Family doesn't abandon each other. Family doesn't humiliate each other for entertainment. You're not my family. You're just people I used to know. So what do you want?" Chris spoke for the first time. "Money? An apology? What?" "I want you to leave. All of you. And never come back." "Tom!" Sasha reached for me, but I stepped away. "We're done, Sasha. We've been done since you chose to drive away from that truck stop. You made your choice. Now live with it." "I choose you. I choose our marriage." Too late. A massive lightning bolt struck somewhere nearby, close enough that the thunder was instantaneous and deafening. The lights in the house went out, plunging us into darkness, except for the candles still flickering in the living room window. In that moment of darkness and chaos, with the storm raging around us and my marriage dying on my front porch, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. "Peace. Get off my property," I said quietly. "All of you, and don't come back." "Tom, you can't," Art started. "I can, and I will. This is my house, and you're trespassing." They stood there for another moment, unsure what to do. Then Greg, of all people, spoke up. "Come on, let's go. He's made his point." One by one, they walked back to their cars. Sasha was the last to leave, standing in the rain and staring at me like she was seeing a stranger. 20 years, Tom. 20 years. Yeah, 20 years too long." She turned and walked away, and I watched their taillights disappear into the storm. I went back inside, locked the door, and sat down in my chair. The candle flickered in the window, casting dancing shadows on the walls. My phone buzzed. A text from Pete. "You okay, man? Saw the news about Art getting fired." I typed back, "Never better." And for the first time in months, that was actually true. The divorce was finalized 3 months later. Sasha got the Honda and her personal belongings. I got everything else, including my self-respect. Art never got his job back. The bank decided that someone who would abandon a family member during a storm warning lacked the judgment necessary for handling other people's money. Chris found work eventually, but had to move to another state where his reputation hadn't preceded him. Linda threw herself into volunteer work, trying to rebuild her social standing one charity event at a time. Greg's real estate license was suspended after several clients complained about his unprofessional conduct. His wife took half his assets in their divorce, and Sasha? Last I heard, she was working as a receptionist in a dental office and living in a studio apartment downtown. As for me, I'm still fixing air conditioners and heating systems, still living in the same house, though I've made some improvements. The kitchen has new cabinets, and I finally got that hot tub I always wanted. Sometimes people ask me if I regret what I did, if I think my revenge went too far. I tell them the same thing I told Pete when he asked. They taught me that actions have consequences. I just returned the favor. Because here's the thing about pranks. They're only funny if everyone's laughing, and I had the last laugh.